Now we are recording. Good morning again to our listeners. My name is Beatrice Achaleke, the author of the Africa for Smart Kids book series, and you are tuned in to another edition of our Zoom in conversations around the Africa for Smart Kids book series, but also around the being African, our identity, our heritage, our culture. And today I have my next speaker or my next conversation partner in Lagos. It's my good friend Chinwe or Ukuku. She and I, we have a long story. We both lived in Vienna and we both decided to pack our 2 suitcases and move back to the continent. And she is in Lagos, Nigeria. I am here in Johannesburg, South Africa. And it is a great pleasure, Chi, to have you in this conversation. I know you're doing great things in Nigeria. You and I will talk for centuries, but we're going to keep this conversation short for the purpose of our listeners. So will you kindly introduce yourself? Who are you?
Okay, my name's Mrs. Chinwe Ukuku. I am originally from Nigeria, lived in Vienna, Austria for close to 2 decades. 2 years ago, I decided to come back home. I'm a mother to 3 beautiful kids. All of them are in their teenage age right now. So I think that's all. I studied public administration in the university, and as a migrant too, I did a lot of diploma courses here and there. So having so many certificates that will let us fit in. So I think that's pretty much about me.
And there's much more about you than you're saying in your introduction. But let's go.
Okay. Let me come back again. I coming back to the African continent and Nigeria, to be precise. I am a founder of 3 companies. One is the Incubation Center for New Technologies. It's part of an energy company, right, and trainings too. So right now we are starting up an entrepreneurship center where people will come, and we are locating it in Port Harcourt, Nigeria. And I have a water company, a water production company as well in Lagos. I'm also into PR, trying to bring the other side of where we are coming from to marry most of the prospect of Nigeria as well. Yes.
I told you with Chinwe, you're going to have quite a lot of interesting stories. She's an entrepreneur, she's a mom, and she just moved to Nigeria and she has launched 3 companies. You have to take care of that. So, Chi, you mentioned 2 things in your introduction that I would like to pick on. You lived in Vienna for close to 2 years, and you have 3 kids who were born in Austria.
Yes.
What does it feel like? What is it like to parent kids outside of the culture that you grew up in?
Well, I came to Austria at the time I was also living my teenage age, trying to become an adult. And by the time I started having my kids, I had my first child when I'm about getting to 23 years. So you can see it was quite early. And the culture that I grew up in, we have this community kind of life where you have so many people around you to help you, to teach you. But then I was in a foreign country where everybody is minding their own business. So trying to bring up offspring in your own way without any knowledge. And at this time also, not like now that we have the cell phone, then communication was a bit difficult in Nigeria because you have to book for phone calls. Not like now you can pick up the phone and you start calling and your mom is on the other side of the phone. So I have to learn things on my own, and it was difficult because I was pretty much on my own and with a bit of other diasporans too, because we kind of come together to build a family. So even if you're from Zimbabwe, you're from Cameroon, we are all one. We are all sisters and brothers. So we try to stay and help each other. So that's how I was able to go through, but it wasn't easy at all.
Mm-hmm. In terms of the environment that you spent part of your childhood in and parented your children, which is Austria, is a German-speaking country, not English-speaking like Nigeria. In Nigeria, you have many languages. You have more languages than any other African country on the continent. And coming from that background, having to raise your kid in a German-speaking country and a country that says it has no connection with Africa, what were your greatest challenges?
Okay, my greatest challenge as a mom who is trying to bring up her kids is we have a kind of cultural conflict, because when I was growing up, there are some basic things that my background taught me how to do things, how to go and live, and it's just contrary to what Austria is all about. Like, even if your child does something, you are not allowed to spank, you are not allowed to talk to them, you know. And it becomes difficult because irrespective that we live in a foreign country, we still have where we are coming from. We are still a people of African descent who you are not allowed to call an elder by their names. Mm-hmm. You either put auntie, auntie this, auntie that. So I inculcate that in them. But my first experience was when my first child started school, and in the kindergarten, and she went calling the teacher auntie that, and the woman became very upset. I was like, why are you calling me auntie? I'm not your auntie. So when she called me, and I was like, that's how we've been taught. We are not allowed to call our elders by their first name. She said, no, this is not Africa, this is not Nigeria. Let her call me Regina. My name is Regina. So you see the conflict there. You come home, in the African community, the child will call, oh, Auntie Beatrice, you will answer. When they go to the Austrian community, when they call auntie, it becomes a very big problem. So the culture clash there was something we have to worry about, because the kids got a kind of confused. So, and sometimes I have to say something like this. Since I was born and I grew up in our education system, nobody have taught you how to call the police or report to wherever. But that's the first thing they teach them, and when they come back, they want to act it out. So you try to see how you will balance it, but it's quite difficult. And we tried our best. We tried our best, because at the end of the day, we are still Africans, irrespective that their primary home is Vienna, they were born there, but they still have where they are coming from. Mm-hmm. And we are still trying, because right now, I think the foundation is it, and I'm still sure that whatever we inculcate in them, that they will carry it through into their adulthood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That is quite much. I can sign that 1,000%, because it's my reality. Yeah. One thing that I would want to pick on is the books that the kids read. What kind of children's stories did you read to your children in Austria, and what kind of books do they read? And how does that? Okay. What kind of books do they read, and how does that shape their identity as young Africans in the diaspora?
Okay, the truth is that the system of education is quite different in Austria from Nigeria, because in Nigeria, as a kindergarten student, you start reading some books, those foundational books, where they will show you mother, father, Obi is a boy, Ada is a girl, showing you culture. But I found that in Austria, even I went to ask them, in the kindergarten level until you get to the preschool, you are not allowed to read. So you are not even allowed. They say this is the time of formation for them to learn. Maybe if you're good in handcraft or whatever, is the time to play. So, and I went to the libraries, and normally I do go to the library with them, but I didn't find books that will be able to translate maybe the stories that will tell them. Because in Nigeria, when we are growing up, we are told a lot of folk stories when our parents will gather and they begin to tell us some books. But fortunately for me, when each time I travel, I do buy books from Nigeria. Those small books that will tell story about community life and where we are coming from, stories about Nigeria in the primary level. So I was buying books, but there's not much a book that will really show them their identity. I don't think there's really book that concentrates more on African history, especially for kids in Austria. To the libraries I've been to, the English bookshop in Stephansplatz, I couldn't find any. So they end up reading the stories that they really want them to read. But as an African child, they don't have. But I do buy some books when I go to their reading, and they've read till now, and I still do buy them books as well.
Mm-hmm. Chid, you said something which is very typically Nigerian, something that I really admire about Nigerians. When it comes to your heritage, when it comes to your identity, when it comes to your patriotism, you have no apologies. You started by introducing your name. I heard no Beatrice, no Belinda, no foreign names. You have your typical Nigerian names. You dress.
And that, coming to the name, we intentionally didn't give our kids any English name. Mm-hmm. So even when we give birth and we go to do their birth certificates, and the white man will be telling us, are you sure this name is a name for a human being? I say, yes, of course. Then they will ask us to go to the embassy to bring a confirmation that this name is actually given to a human being. And sometimes I get amazed, because if I have given them names like dog or cat, they will not have a problem with that. Then now I'm giving my own native name, you're having a problem with that. So these are some of the challenges as diasporans that we really face. And one of the reasons as well that made us to give them a native name, my husband, after watching these South African movies, you know, during the apartheid and all that, roots, Kunta Kunte and all that. So he swore never, he will not give any of his child any English name. My name is Elizabeth as well. So his name, my husband's name is Lawrence, yes. So we have to go remove those names because we have to live by examples. So we have to remove our English name and go solely on the native name. So even most times when we give our kids names, even our own Africans who come to tell us, are you sure they can pronounce it? Why don't you give them English name? I said no, because if I call Wolfgang and I didn't call Wolfgang well, he won't answer me. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm not a German speaking person originally. I came to learn the language and learn how to pronounce their names. So they have to also learn how to pronounce their names. So, and I tell the kids that you have to proud yourself in your name, because that's one of your identity. So that even if when I leave this world and go back to my creator, when you see somebody, Amarachi, it will draw you back to Africa. Or you see Chimdemma, you know, are you a Nigerian? Or if you're from Nigeria, you will ask, are you from the East? You see, there's a very, names for me are very important. And hopefully we believe our kids will come back to their roots, but we say that name will also aid drawing them back to their roots.
I really love that. I love that philosophy. I celebrate you for that. Quite a lot of us parents, especially in the diaspora, we give up because people don't know how to pronounce the names. We give up because the system allowed us to give those names. I had to go through the same procedure like you to get my kids my kids their Cameroonian names in their birth certificate and in all their documents. But I love the way you go about that, and I love the philosophy behind to say it connects them with the continent. I'll tell you something. My daughter, who was born in Austria, she has all her names. She has a Cameroonian name. She has that English name. And so in school, she says, children don't know how to pronounce her Cameroonian name, but she insists. And she gives them the translation. Her name is Ngwise. It means Mother Earth. And it's the name of our great-grandmother. So it's very, naming giving tradition, it's a very powerful one. So she's insisting, and she's insisting about learning my mother tongue right now, which makes me really proud. So what I'm trying to say is we shouldn't give up. We shouldn't give up when we face those challenges, be it a system to assimilate into theirs by giving us up yours, in terms of naming, the name-giving process of your children and the challenges that you face through that. Back to Nigeria, you have a way of dressing, and you have a way of putting yourself out there, which is very Nigerian. And recently we've seen that your music, the Nigerian music, has conquered the world music industry.
It's global. Yes.
You have conquered the world music industry. You sing in Pidgin, you sing in your national languages. The world dances to your music. What is it that we other Africans can learn from you Nigerians about being proud of who you are and where you come from?
I think basically when we are growing up, because Nigeria is, when we come to ethnic groups, we have been divided into the three major ethnic groups. That's the Hausa, Yoruba, and Igbo. And all these regions have a way of dressing that makes people identify where you're coming from. And Nigeria, from beginning, they really tried to make sure that we really flow in this cultural heritage of ours. So every activity in the school, if you're from Igbo, they tell you dress Igbo, Hausa dress as an Hausa man, Yoruba dress as a Yoruba man. Even till today, they still do that. They still have the cultural school days where kids come and dress in their attire. I think that helps us to have a pride in our attire culturally. So, and we also believe it makes us beautiful, because even if an Hausa person dresses, they are so in love with their dressing. The Yoruba people dresses, they are so, the Igbo woman comes out, they are so in love with it. So I think from family, also as a nation, our heritage, also in our food, because we have different, Nigeria is so blessed in culture, in food. Our heritage is well diverse. So, and we are so into it. We are proud. I'm proud to come and tell you, eating my onubu soup. And when you saw food, they say, have you eaten amala? And they wait. I will automatically know that you are from the West, you are a Yoruba person. Then when somebody say, I cook tuwo shinkafa, I will know they are from the North. So it identifies where we are coming from. And the beauty of it is that even now, I can dress out like an Hausa woman, I can dress like Yoruba, vice versa with the Hausas and Yoruba too. So I think the nation, as a nation, they helped us to embrace our culture through dressing.
For those who are listening to us, Chi is breaking in between. As you know, we're doing a conversation through internet. We have sometimes issues with the network connection. It's the same between Johannesburg and Lagos. So if there are any messages, we ask you to kindly bear with us. We are continuing the conversation irrespective of those technical challenges. Chi, you said something about food. I'll tell you a short story about my daughter. We cook, I used to cook okra in Austria. It was like when we got stressed, we cooked okra. It's like the therapy food that we adopted. Yes, and so when we cooked okra, my daughter, she would close the door and she would sit with me on the table. When her friends would knock, she would not open. She says, we're having a ritual. And when I asked her, why will you close the door? She says, I don't want to have to explain to anybody why I'm eating with my hands. We eat okra with our hands, and that's what we're doing. And I don't want to explain. I don't want to justify. So I was like, okay, this kid, she knows, she is proud of, she's not questioning, she does it, and she doesn't want to justify, which is really very good. I don't know if kids as well.
Yes, the thing is that right from time we cook our traditional food. So I try to make them to eat it at least 4 times a week. We must eat our traditional food. And we Nigerians, we like our egusi soup, we like our okra soup, we like our vegetable soup and all that. So I try to make them understand that this is it. And also, I try to study other ethnic minorities in Austria as well. I found out that the Turkish, they embrace their culture.
Yes.
The Yugoslavia, they embrace the Chinese, even their language. Yes. So I use them as an example for the kids. I said, you see, you must speak Igbo. You must speak our dialect because you see these Turkish kids, they speak Turkish, they speak German. So we have to learn that. And he encourages them because we have some Turkish neighbors around us. And all the time they cook their Turkish food. So you must pride yourself in our food. They also had that problem because initially when they are eating and somebody comes in, they don't want to explain. They were ashamed. But now they are not. Because when we go to the Indian restaurant, they see the Indians using their hands to eat. So it becomes normal. They are proud. I say that makes you an African person. So when anybody asks you, tell them that I'm eating like an African that I am. That's the way of our life. And they've embraced it and it's okay with it.
Chi, you are an inspiration when it comes to parenting and many other things. You have inspired me in many ways. And I think many of us parents, we can look up to you, bring up the children to embrace their Africanness in terms of not just the name giving, but how you explain to them about we are echoing, recording an echo in the background. So it's not very comfortable. Please bear with us, we will go away. So the question is, not a question, our next point of the conversation is this voice.